Ready? February 21st, 12:09, meeting called to order.
All right, roll call. Commissioner Beeler,
Present.
Chair Curry,
Present.
Commissioner Mandel,
Present.
and Commissioner Wall.
Present. Okay, everybody had a chance to read the minutes from January 17th? Yes. Okay. I'll move to approve. All right, any discussion? Move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And if I could just take a vote for that. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Chair Curry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Mandel, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wall, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, this motion carries 4-0.
We don't have any special presentations.
That's correct, Commissioners. No special presentations.
General comments from the public.
Nobody from the public today, sir.
Consent agenda.
And no consent agenda.
Okay, and go to the budget.
So if you turn to page 8 in the packet, we've got our budget variance, which is our budget to date. We've done 8 out of 13 payrolls at this point. So glide path, we're looking roughly about 60%, but understanding that some categories come in at different rates. We did mention at the last meeting, our first apportionment came in above what we budgeted. So we're actually sitting at 70% revenue. We usually predict to be sitting around 65. So that's positive, helps balance out across the higher costs we have on some expenses just due to basic inflation. Other than that, the revenue side looks fairly standard. Moving through to expenses, we've covered these a little bit, but we should be glide pathing just over 60%. One category that's high is extra help, and that's where we've placed Chief Rooks in the past. Again, up to this point, the majority of his costs have been covered by grants. We do have grants that came in this year as well that'll help offset that. We did have some higher 401A costs, which just meant that people were actually responding on calls to be eligible. And then we also paid out Chief Revault's hours on that. And moving down the budget, everything looks relatively the same. What you're going to see is I'm trying to keep the historic categories for now, just so we don't create too much confusion. And we needed to find a place to put basically we're paying people now to go on incidents where before we're providing them a stipend. The stipend used to come out of volunteer firefighter. Now it's going to be coming out of that same category. It's just going to be pay. The other thing is it's at an increased rate because it's time and a half because they're coming out in not scheduled. And it's also actually going to become a large category this 1 year because generally the stipend used to cover November to November. So we captured the previous year in it. This year we're going to be capturing all of last year plus this year moving forward. So one time that category is going to be high and then we'll adjust it to the appropriate amount. Any questions on personnel costs? So moving through admin, I think this is just kind of as a whole representative of the fact that everything is costing a little bit more this year. Nothing that's extremely concerning. We knew that uniforms and clothing would be high. There's multiple reasons for that. One is we have 19 rookies that we had to outfit. There's significant costs actually with just badges and these pins. These end up being about $40. I can't remember how much a badge is. Caroline might remember.
It's like $115 per badge.
Yeah, so it ends up being a significant cost there that we knew would be absorbing. Also jackets this year. were a cost that we haven't had in the past, but thought that that's something we should get our people because turns out we work in the snow. So expect admin expenses to be higher. A lot of these are front end costs, so still hope to get closer to the 100% as we work through the year. Moving on to logistics, we're doing relatively well here, although we haven't submitted for the costs for 33 to go in and get worked on. So everything is coming in kind of where we'd hope it would be this time of year, assuming we're not breaking too much equipment. IT support is a pretty large year this year. A lot of that's moving to ESO, which is a new program, and then Chief Morrow has a new inspection program as well. So that's where a lot of those costs are coming from. Keep moving through, utilities is actually looking relatively good. That's mostly due to the fact that we budgeted pretty aggressively, expecting inflation there. So hopefully that helps us glide path in the right direction. And then training is low at this point, but we do have quite a few trainings scheduled in the spring for our wildland program that's going to be coming up. So I do expect that category to bump up as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. Any questions on budget?
Yeah, Alice,
Yep.
Going back with the rookies with the costs for the badges and that, what happens when they retire? Are those turned back in?
Yeah, so the department has an SOP. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but if you put in 3 years, then you get to keep your badge.
Okay.
There's certain requirements on how you have to do that. But so I'd say a portion of them are returned, a portion of them are kept by that individual. We do actually have, this is going to put us forward on badges quite a bit. We were able to get through most of the rookies without that purchase. We have, I was going to get to another rookie class coming. This could be about 14 individuals, and we're hoping we're going to be good on badges for a period here.
Okay.
So, that being said, name tags, you have to,
Yeah,
place
you
all
can't
the time.
use
So,
those.
yeah, you can. You're Joe Smith, sorry.
If I might add.
Yep.
Is the policy is still, I assume that if a firefighter graduated to engineer, then he turns in his firefighter badge and gets the new engineer. badge.
Correct. When you retire, we've let people keep their badges at that point. So, and we've had discussions on larger departments tend to number badges so you can keep track. We've always been small. Actually, have a giant box of some old badges, the little ones, if you remember those. So it's something we haven't made more formal at any point. At some point we might do that, but right now we just have bigger fish to fry. So.
Okay.
So Commissioner Curry, if there's nothing else on budget, or we can move to.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Move on to old business.
No old business at this time. I'm going to cover a couple items that we have ongoing just in chief and district comments, but none that require action.
Okay. We'll move on to new business. Consideration of appointing Betsy Truax to fill the board vacancy.
So I believe board member Beeler was picked by the board to work on this project. I attempted to assist him going through candidates. I will turn it over to him.
Okay.
So I met with Betsy a week ago Saturday, and sat down for a little bit over an hour, and basically was just listening to her telling me what she's been involved with over the course of time and her feelings about the community and her drive to always try to be giving something to the community, which really struck a bell with me. And I was very impressed with her number one, her attitude about volunteerism, and that is really important for me, I think, for this position. And she went through her different episodes of life as far as work is concerned and what she's trying to do here. And I think that the fit would be great for the department, for the board, I should say. And I asked her to give me just in writing just some bullet points or thoughts as to, what she's done as far as volunteerism is concerned. If I might, I'll just read what she sent to me.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
So she said, Dear Commissioner Beeler, thank you and Chief DeMeyer for taking the time to speak with me about the current vacancy on Mammoth Lakes Fire Protection District Board. I hope you and the board will consider appointing me to the position. I moved to Mammoth Lakes with my family in 2010 for my spouse's career in hospitality. Our daughter is now 15, a sophomore at Mammoth High School. My spouse and I both grew up in small communities in the Northeast and believe strongly in giving back to our community. I've been the co-leader of Girl Scout Troop number 580 and a classroom and PTO volunteer when my daughter was in elementary school. In 2012, I was appointed to the Town of Mammoth Lakes Recreation Commission, now the Parks Recreation Commission. I served on the commission for 10 years and was a chair from 2014 to 2022. I'm also active in the California Association of Park and Recreation Commissioners and board members, CAPR, CBM is there.
All that also.
Yeah. I served as president of that board from 2020 until 2022, and am currently wrapping up my term as immediate past president. The MLFPD board, and both of these boards are volunteer positions which require preparation for meetings, meeting attendance, working with staff, and committee work in addition to liaising with the public. I am quite familiar with the Brown Act and have attended numerous ethics and other board meetings, trainings. I take the role of commissioner seriously and am willing and able to devote the time and energy to be effective. I currently work as the executive director of the Mammoth Lakes Foundation, where I have been employed for the past 5 years. I enjoy strong relationships in the community and believe those will be an asset to the department. Last fall, I ran for town council in a very close race, losing the seat by just 6 votes. Since then, I have carefully considered how to meaningfully continue serving our community and am especially intrigued by this opportunity. I have the utmost respect for the men and women of the department and some idea of the challenges and opportunities faced by our very unique department. Over the past 2 years, I've dealt with an aging fire suppression system at the foundation, as well as the challenges of insuring buildings with high wildfire risk scores. Challenges shared by many in our community. I also had the pleasure of working with former Chief Frank Freevault to set up public COVID testing and the foundation in early 2021. I look forward to learning much more about the department and commission, and would be honored to serve on the commission. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Elizabeth Betsy Truax. So after reading that and talking with her the other day, I think we've got a perfect candidate in front of us. And I think, John, you submitted her name.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah,
And if
I've
you-
known Betsy for at least the last 5 years. And she, her dedication and stuff to the town, I think she's missed 3 town council meetings in the last 10 years. She attends all the meetings. She wants to know what's going on. She speaks town, which is good for us in that, plus she's a really balanced, sort of calm individual. She's, has always come off as very thoughtful and measured in the way she reacts to things. So I would agree with you. I think even chemistry wise, I think she'd be a good fit.
The thing that really stuck out for me was, I could relate to her when she was talking to me, and especially reading through this, just her, since what appears to me to be a sincere desire to serve the community. And I didn't know about the, making so many town council meetings, which has got to be a lot of devotion and dedication. So anyway, I feel very, very positive for her, and you do. And
Well, you had sent me her resume and it's very impressive. And I feel that she'd probably be a really good fit for us here and give us a little different point of view. So, yeah, as involved as she is with the town and that, I think it's a real good fit for us.
And I specifically asked her, if she felt she had the time to make these meetings.
Uh-huh.
And she feels definitely she could, no problem.
Good.
Wasn't she involved with the disabled sports also?
Disabled sports, I believe so.
It's a good qualification.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
what would the next step be?
Well, we move to approve.
Would
If
she
we
ever
have a
come,
vote
would
to-
she ever come before us and speak or?
I think the bottom line is we just make a decision to appoint or not to
I
appoint.
think so.
Yeah.
That's why maybe we, or my impression was, that's what.
Yeah, so we do have- We have a couple timelines that we have to meet because we're appointing, which is 60 days from when the previous commissioner, which was January 1st. So we could schedule a special meeting if you wanted to speak with her in person. Brett and I went kind of back and forth on the easiest way for this group to interact because we do have to follow Brown Act. I can also vouch, I've known Betsy for, I can't say how many years, but a long time. We on, best as far as everything, but also Brett dates to get to that. The fairly good understanding, and she can hit the ground running, which you don't always see.
That's
So
Asheville, that work.
yeah,
She's-
and that
Oh, there it is.
She being able to hit the ground running, and that's my impression because of her active and current and past board memberships.
So the board has several options. You could consider appointing Betsy Truax today. That would be an option. If you felt like you needed more information or bring her in, we could do another meeting. But again, we'd have to get a quorum together and appoint by the end of the month, essentially.
Yeah, you guys had met with her. I know her. I need no additional information myself. Like I said, I've known her for a while. You spent time with her, but if Roger, I feel the need to have her come in and speak, but yeah, I don't know. You guys didn't make me speak.
Yeah,
That's probably why you want to.
we should have, but
Yeah, well, it was for-
Yeah. And we would have loved to have her speak with all of you, but obviously with Brown Act, we were limited on how much interaction she could have with the board outside of a general meeting.
Does
So
that
if we
answer
were
your question,
to
Bill?
entertain it today, are we looking for a motion?
I'm happy to
Yeah.
entertain it today if everybody else is, that's fine.
I am.
I think it'd be nice to meet her, but you guys have high recommendations for her, so I can go with that. And I think it's so important to be community oriented. We're not gonna find anybody better. I think we all agreed we want to have a female, so, I mean, it sounds like a perfect fit.
We put in, but I would recommend a motion for appointing Betsy Truax to fill the position, and we should put an actual date on it as well for when she fills that position. So we
It
can
has
have
to be
that.
before.
It has to be before March 1st. So
Today.
today would be good.
Today-
Yeah.
Today would be a
No
good
time
time.
like the present.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We're running out of time.
Running out of time.
February 28th.
Caroline, we have to call for a motion.
So do we have a motion to appoint Betsy Truax effective today, Tuesday, February 21st?
I would move that.
Any other discussion?
Second.
And I would second that motion.
I know this is redundant. This is what I'm supposed to do. Chair Beeler, what is your vote?
Affirmative.
Or sorry, that was Commissioner Beeler.
Yes, I guess.
Chair Curry, what is your vote?
Yes,
Went over my head.
Commissioner Mendel, what is your vote?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wall, what is your vote?
Yes.
Okay, this motion passes 4-0.
And Commissioner Wall, now that she's on the board, I can have her reach out to you so you can get to know her personally, so.
Okay. That will probably
probably
happen in our
wanna do that
meetings anyway, but
How should we notify her?
um, If you would like to, Brett, you can do that, or you can direct me as
I'd be
well.
glad to do that.
Great.
okay, moving on. Consideration of authorizing purchase of the backup diesel supply for Station 1.
So Chief Walker is going to speak on this, and the only reason I put this on the agenda, it actually fits within district purchasing without going to the board, but this was a, board request that we look into this, so I just want to keep you updated on the issue and Chief Walker's recommendation.
Yeah, it was a request to look into additional fuel storage and looking at some options. I think I found an ideal solution if we decide to go this route. Company makes a completely self-contained 500-gallon diesel tank. UL approved, has its own 110% secondary containment around it. It's a double-walled structure. It's got its own pump, hose, everything's built into it. It's designed basically to be dropped on construction sites anywhere they need additional fuel. But we've not worked out any of the town permit requirements or any of that kind of stuff. Just wanted to bring it up. Plus, it's also something I don't believe we'd be interested in doing until summer, and we can see the ground and where we're actually gonna put
You
this.
think we'll be able to see it by
thing.
summer?
But this is an option that I feel would be a good fit for us, and I would recommend if you guys felt that it's something we should move forward with, so.
Ballpark money without town requirements and slabs and all that stuff. Yeah.
The initial quote I got back was $7,500. They have since been pestering me to lower the price. I don't know how much. I haven't gotten back to them, but kind of found out the hard way. I got into their system and they're very interested in selling this one. But that was the original quote I got back.
And just to speak on the value on that $8,000 for being able to back up our fleet, probably for at least a week during the storm cycle, is money well spent. We spend hundreds of $1,000s on propane generator systems to keep the stations running. So this seems like a little bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just curious, what are the dimensions of this pod?
Looking for one at home.
You know what? I didn't print that page up, but it's essentially
500 gallon is probably 4.5, 5.
yeah,
It's not.
I think it's like 6 feet by 4 feet by a little over 4 feet, something like that. So,
Yeah, okay.
just rough.
Yeah, if you look at the picture, you can see the forklifts on the bottom, so that gives you a rough idea of
Yeah, I mean, it's designed to be picked
Scale.
up by a forklift and moved around.
Chief Walker, how long can diesel fuel sit in this tank without having to be used or changed or anything?
They recommend not storing diesel for more than a year. That being said, practically speaking, it could be far longer than that. We've got vehicles. To show an example out, the bus out there has probably had the same diesel in it for the last 15 years.
What we discussed for our operations is that we would fill it at the beginning of winter using 91. And then at the end of the winter, if it hadn't been used, we would drain it down for the summer essentially, and then refill it kind of every winter.
And how do you fill it?
So the plan would be to just essentially, we've got a 100-gallon tank that's in the back of 91, one of our pickup trucks. So it would be 5 trips to the town yard to fill it up for the year, which would, be a little bit of effort, but it's not too crazy. It's not that far away. So
We haven't hazed the new commissioner yet, so we're doing
yes. So that was my initial thought, was basically we just fill it using our own 100-gallon tank. Let it sit there as a backup. you know, if we needed it, we'd use it during the winter. If not, we'd fill our rigs up come springtime and basically empty it out and start with a fresh supply the next year.
Personally, I think it makes sense, especially given what we almost ran into.
Well, we did run into it where the diesel fuel, they had to bring up the tankers.
Yeah.
CHP had to
Yeah.
escort them up, so I would think it's an absolute necessity.
And this is standard practice in a lot of fire districts. If you go through quite a few across the county, you'll see that they have tanks at their stations.
Yeah,
And then this has got to be on a slab, I assume, and maybe bolted down, that kind of thing.
no,
Seismic.
Like I said, I have not approached the town with permits and what they would require. My assumption is yes, so on a slab, probably
Seems like
be strapped similar to a propane tank.
it'd be pretty easy.
Other than that, it's self-contained, so it doesn't.
Clusters around it. Yeah.
So
And this is not covered, right? So it can.
this is
withstand
designed to
snow
live
and ice.
outside, so it's designed. It's got weather protection all built on. The hoses, the pump, and everything live in a compartment inside with a weatherproof cover on it. Like I said, this is designed to be stuck out in the middle of nowhere on a construction site.
Perfect.
So, which I really liked about it because it was like done. Basically, if we do put a slab in, shows up, we set it in place, and it's kind of a done deal.
is that designed to hold both gasoline or diesel?
Just
It's just diesel.
Once you switch to gasoline, it changes everything.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be initially used for gas.
No,
No.
this
Okay.
is designed solely for diesel.
Venting
Just 'cause
requirements
of-
are quite a bit different. That's
I honestly don't know what is different about,
Yeah.
but I can tell you that the
The
price
ignition point is
doubles
the
or
difference.
triples when you want to put gasoline in.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And this has a battery?
There's two options. There's a 12-volt system pump, or you can get a 110-volt system. I'd have to look at what would work out best for us.
Not sure on that. Yeah.
As long as we recycle the diesel through it, like you're suggesting, I think that would be great.
Makes sense.
You know, on the construction site versions, they go with the 12-volt system, and it basically, you basically connect it to the battery on the vehicle you're filling, use that battery to operate the pump, you fill the vehicle. And
Yep.
so, and then I don't ever see this as being something that we wouldn't be pulling our vehicles up to it on any kind of regular basis. This is not a gas station. The thought would be that we would transfer fuel from this to the 100-gallon tank we have, and then use that as we do now to fill up our vehicles.
Mhm. Do I have a motion for considering authorizing the purchase of the,
I would make a motion to purchase the Western Global 500-gallon fuel cube.
okay, any discussion? Caroline?
Did we get a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Beeler, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Chair Curry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Mandel, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Commissioner Wall, how do you vote?
Yes.
Don't forget to deal with the fire marshal.
Don't know that we needed a motion, but it carries 4-0.
We do have to get permission from the fire marshal, by the way, that's our code, so.
That could be the hang-up.
Okay, next up was consideration of authorizing repair costs for the tent out in the back.
Yes, tent.
Yeah.
As you may or may not know, our tent developed a pretty large rip over that last January storm cycle. Its membrane has basically run its course, outlived its life, and those last storms just took it out. So
How long a life was that? How long was it?
put it in, I think it must have been the summer of 2005 because it was my rookie year. So
I'm just trying to get a sense of how.
yeah, so I think we got 18 years, close to 17 years out of it. They warranty the membranes for 15 years, go figure.
Yeah.
However, that being said, I believe that this has to be one of the most extreme environments that these things live in anyway. So, but they're designed for the snow to slide off of them. The south facing side of this tent has lost that ability. It's basically lost its tension, so it's not as tight as it used to be. And it's also, the material itself is no longer slick. It's almost furry now. So the snow doesn't come off like it used to.
And it's ripped right at the rib.
It's ripped right at the rib, so.
I would suggest to the other board members, if you went to that window right through that room, you could probably see it.
I believe it.
I took a look at it.
Get out there with my
Okay.
soul.
Yeah, after that big storm cycle, we sent the crews up there and the snow just was not coming off, and we took it off manually, and we didn't discover it until we dug it out. They do not, there's no patch kit for it. Essentially the fix is to reskin that section. So there's a couple ways they can do that. We got a couple different prices here. It is possible to only replace that one bay or reskin that one bay. But I feel that the others would be just right behind it. Could be a week, could be a year. I don't know, but it's not. I don't have any faith that they'll last too much longer. And there's a fair bit of work to do just the one that would also be combined if we chose to do so. We kind of talked about it. I mean, there's obviously, a couple different choices. They don't have, I talked with Sprung Structure. The building itself doesn't have any resale value. They said that in today's climate, basically, if we were to take it down, even to recycle the aluminum, which is the only thing of value there, they said it's basically a break-even proposition. So I was kind of hoping they said, "Oh yeah, we'll buy it back, or we can sell it to somebody." Apparently, so they do have a system that skins over the top of what's there. So the system we're looking at basically attaches to the exterior. Everything that you see there would stay. Prior to this system, you would have to basically take the entire building apart and rebuild it as though it was new. This new system, like I said, is a new skin that goes over the entire
What's the
thing.
warranty on the new skin?
15 years.
Still 15 years, okay. And the superstructure itself is fine. I mean,
Superstructure is guaranteed for 50 years.
Okay.
And yes, so I had 3 different Sprung Structure people out here. They
What
have
would
to be
it
here a
cost
lot
to-
because of the,
what would it cost to build a hardscape structure out there?
the original cost on it was, I believe around $250,000.
No, but I mean,
A metal
I'm talking about a building.
Oh, a metal building at 3,500 square feet, well over $1 million. I talked to Brent Allen about it, and these were rough numbers, of course, but just by square footage, he just like, yes.
And just if I could zoom out strategically on this a little bit, I've got mixed feelings on this because it is a tent that was supposed to be there temporarily while we were building the station, and we found we could put stuff in there. I walked it with Chief Walker quite a bit and made me recognize that about half of it is legitimate, and long term we do need to figure out some solutions, especially as we're working through figuring out what our fleet looks like in this next generation with more wildland defensible space equipment. One consideration I think I'd ask the board is, as we start to look, and again, at some point we'll have to put together a facilities strategic master plan, but a couple things you can see out there in the future. Main Lodge is most likely going to move forward, but it'll probably take about a decade. We did reach out to see if we could put something up there, and essentially the ski area said, okay, we'll put that on Forest Service land. The Forest Service does not want our things on Forest Service land, which presents us with a little bit of a conundrum. The ski area will give us some land, but probably not what we'd like to do out there. They'll put us in a piece that we'd fit. So one potential negotiating point at some point could be to see if we could do something which we've done in the past, which is a land swap with the Forest Service. We actually acquired this land through a land swap, and it may make sense that in 10 years we do a land swap that extends that private land out there a little bit. And then we find a way that we can do kind of a public-private partnership to where we provided land. The ski area helps us build some facilities out there, and they also need a little bit of that land for theirs to make it worth their time. So what I would say is, moving forward with this, consider this about a 10-year investment. And for me, you take a look at it, still everything we've looked at, we explored our options, renting some space in hangars kind of across the board, and still nothing comes in as cheap as just
So the math in my head
reskinning.
was pretty simple. So if you're talking about a 10-year investment, $14,000 a year, $1,200 a month, you're gonna pay $1,200 for a 1,200 square foot space down in the industrial park, which gives you 1,200 square feet where you don't want to be. Okay, so what's the square footage on that?
3,500.
Yeah, so
And
for
location. as well.
$1,200 a month, I mean,
Exactly.
that's a pretty simple cost estimate for me. And
The other consideration is, if we just did that one bay, that's essentially a fifth of it for a third of the
you're
price.
gonna
So
be back to
that's-
this.
Yeah, do it
Yeah.
next year or 2 years from now.
And how many bays?
5.
Yeah, so now you're talking about a $225,000 investment.
Yeah.
Which.
Yeah.
In the next 5 years, you're gonna end up spending because you're gonna redo the bays.
Yeah, my biggest concern is, I mean, I believe we'll make it through this year, but my concern with the 10 is that if we're to get much worse, some wind event,
Like
Cause it.
today.
like today,
That's coming up this week.
I would hate to come out, I could just see half of it.
And how
Yeah,
much
Crowley.
How many blue tarps do you have?
Yeah.
So I see we would end up paying for the labor and renting the high lifts and bringing their technician out here and putting them up for a period of time, which all is, that's not part of their figure of the true cost. That's all fine. My question is, they warrant it for 15 years. If we get a rip 3 years from now, do they send their own team out, or would we be expected to do the maintenance, not the maintenance, but the repair with their guidance? I guess what I'm trying to say. Or
So
do
it's
we
all
know
on a prorated basis,
Yeah.
so if we had some kind of a failure quickly, they cover obviously more of the costs.
Like a
towards
battery.
the end.
that? So
So-
prorated.
Year 14, probably not a whole lot of,
So this labor cost here, that's our guys or their guys?
so these numbers are based on their estimations, so,
You're going off this recap.
well, I printed that out, but if
Yeah,
farther
no, I
down.
saw the other
Oh,
part, but I
yeah,
assume this is
Yes,
Yeah,
a recap.
yes, so that's the recap I put together. They suggested 320 hours, basically 10 days with 4 workers. It's how we supply those workers.
Okay.
So however we
Just
do
for
that, whether it's,
comparison, the ski area actually went through and redid Little Eagle. Our process would be simpler because we're doing a skinning as opposed to rebuilding it the same way. So Scott reached out to Matt Seibert, who oversaw that project, has a good idea of kind of the technical expertise this takes and the type of team they'll be able to put it together.
so, and they took them like a full 2 months to redo Little Eagle. Their building's much more complicated than ours, but
and we have easy access or reasonable access to the scissor lift and
yeah, these costs were from United Rental out of Sparks, which is where everything you see in town comes from. All the lifts and all the. The van lifts are not cheap.
how would those lifts get down here? Do we go up and pick them up, or do they?
Oh, no, they deliver them on a.
Especially the scissor lifts.
A low
'cause
boy,
they're
yeah, these
such
are,
low.
those boom lifts are 110 foot. I mean, they're longer than our ladder truck, so.
Do you think that labor cost is somewhat accurate? Seems like everything takes a lot longer than is estimated.
I have no reason to really doubt it. If we had everything in place and good guys, I feel like we should be able to do
Is it-
that.
is it
I
very-
almost feel like we should be able to do it
faster. Is it very technical and is it easy to do or?
They tell me it is not that technical. It's very simple. They also provide, so their guy comes out, he brings whatever specialty tools they need. So according to, after talking to them, we're just basically providing people. That-
People in this.
And that could be guys that are already on shift.
Yeah,
I don't.
it's a relatively soft cost in the sense that if we have people that are on duty and available, we use them. If we can't and we need, we, in theory, will have a wildland crew. That being said, if they're out across the state on fires, and they're not gonna be available. So those will be some internal costs, some of which are already budgeted.
How far of a lead time does the company need to
Eight
be in
weeks.
the booking line?
They said only 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Apparently this is not, they claim that this stuff all exists on the shelf in Salt Lake City. This is not anything special. The other things we would do if we did the skin over would, and part of this price would be continue, right now there's the center section of that tent is a clear white section that is not insulated. The idea was to get some natural light in there. We would insulate that and just cover it all with one dark skin. The amount of light it gives you is so minimal anyways that it's not that useful. So it would be increasing the insulation, covering it with one continuous piece, which would help a little. I don't have any numbers on it, but would help with the heating costs and that kind of stuff.
Each bay would be insulated?
At the very top, it's not insulated. The majority of the building is insulated, but if you look out at the very white section on the top,
Where the
it's
heat,
not.
where the
It's
heat collects.
Yeah, where the heat goes.
Yeah.
We would probably also remove, there's 2 vents on top of it. We'd probably also remove, which would help with the energy costs as well, so.
Wouldn't it be worth talking to somebody that's done it like this, provided the labor and have their expertise and see how it goes, how easy it is to do? I mean, it sounds a little tricky to me, but I don't know much about them.
So we pay for their technical consultant to be on top also. So we've got someone who knows how to do this, directing the people who don't.
Correct, and that's the way this company works. They never erect the buildings. They provide the materials and the guy that knows what to do.
Like the Mac or whatever it is.
And those costs are, so I went and called them again. So like the 13 grand for the guy, that's his total cost for the 10 days, so.
Are you considering doing this in-house?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Good.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
I think
I never even thought of hiring outside
yeah, good.
people. I mean, we assembled it the first time. And the
Oh, I
same
didn't
way,
realize that, yeah.
came out on a truck, they had a technician and I think Salzman and Angevine and a bunch of firefighters at the time,
Mhm.
Bob Rooks, put it all together.
It seems to me it's an asset that we've had for a number of years, and it's an important asset, and we should do what we need to do to repair it and keep it moving forward. Especially if Chief is mentioning, the concept of perhaps a land trade later on, but at least we've got it ready to put in the trading pot.
And look, we didn't bat an eyelash spending, what was it, to repair 40 grand
Oh, no, it was only 20,
or 20.
26, 28, yeah.
But I'm saying to fix some dents and that kind of stuff. This is a hard asset. I mean, we've got it, we need it. It's $1,500 a month storage, $1,200 a month storage, as far as I'm concerned, so.
And the money would come from where, from what category? Equipment
So we would
maintenance?
pull this out of our capital replacement essentially. So it is a non-budgeted item from that sense, but it doesn't come out of our general, which leads to that larger discussion we'll have to have strategically. It actually ties in with our audit that's kind of forthcoming. And that's the fact that, running some numbers, I think we should be putting a little more away towards capital replacement. I think we can certainly get there. But the way our capital replacement is set up right now is there's an annual allotment that we take out, and we have certain items. Very often, that's not a perfect match. Another example of that is the radio system. So this is a little bit, it's always going to be not gonna call it a shell game, but a game where you're adjusting accordingly based off the expenditures that make sense at the time. While this is not budgeted, it is a smart decision to make in the sense of what it provides for us. So
I would like to see this as almost a requirement that we come up with some kind of long-term plan past this and not have this be even an option 15 years from now to reskin this thing. It's like something
Yeah.
more permanent. And there's been the talk of what's going to happen with that property up there. I've seen apartments, large metal buildings, lots of stuff thrown around.
Who owns it?
At one time, Harper,
we
Chief
own it.
Harper.
We own it.
Yeah, we swapped it with the Forest
Okay,
Service.
that's what I saw.
Yeah.
So,
Unfortunately, again, the problem was because it was supposed to be a temporary structure, it doesn't have a proper foundation. So
Yeah.
again, it's not ideal, but it is the best.
well, not for this decision, but I think, your point is well taken. They're
You're
on-
better off than the Little Eagle. Little Eagle's on dirt.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah. But-
I don't know if that's the bar that we want to.
No, it's not. the
No,
bar.
and we've had discussions on long-term strategic projects. We obviously have Joaquin. If we're gonna be housing a crew at Station 2, there's some work that should probably be done on Station 2. There's the main lodge project. So all of those should get put in. I think it's fairly common that once you start getting into larger discussions like this, we start talking about other financial mechanisms such as bond measures and that sort of thing, which is a larger discussion. This is probably right on the edge of anything I'd recommend to the board as far as something that we do. Not gonna say on the whim, but rather quickly. The main reason we have to make the call is otherwise this may fly away, as Chief Walker mentioned. So it makes sense for the situation that we're in.
I would say if we're moving forward and considering this, you mentioned that it's 8 weeks, they need the lead time. So, I mean, March, April, first part of May or sometime, I mean, if we set a goal for trying to get it done in June-ish, maybe that's the thing to do. And the sooner the better is where I'm going with
As long as it
this.
snows out.
Sooner, yes, but as soon as
Yeah, that's why I said June and
Snow
maybe
free.
it's July.
Hopefully, yes.
Could be September, but
Well, even if, even to be safe, even if you said
Sooner the
July,
Yeah.
you'd probably give them the hard date, let them work backwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a pretty simple decision. It's a lot of money, but it's, if you didn't have it, you'd have a completely different problem.
And I think my point is too, that rather than, they've told you everything is pretty much shelf ready to go, but before that entity and that entity and an entity over there gets online and says, okay, we want to do this, the sooner we do it, the better, is where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Is that how you people feel, but
Oh, it sounds like we're in agreement. Do I have a motion to approve?
I would move to go forward with the complete structure reskin as presented. With the timetable that we worked out, that's best.
Any further discussion?
again, my discussion would be, I feel it's a good enough property asset to keep in good shape and to move forward with it. So I think we need to do it the sooner the better.
Is that a second?
That would be a second as well.
Okay,
It's like 2.5.
My only comment would be, it's got to get fixed. I don't know if you guys looked at it. It needs to get fixed the sooner the better. I suspect it might cost a little more than this, but
yeah,
yeah.
I know. I kind of thought steel building would have been appropriate, but checking prices on that, you get the ads on TV for general steel buildings and they look really attractive
Plus.
until you start putting it
So,
all
yeah.
together, all the extras.
our-
in there.
Having been through this process before we ended buying 120,
Yeah,
that's all good. That's for a steel building somewhere in the Midwest that doesn't get any snow, no wind,
right.
no foundation, no electrical, by the time you add it all up.
Oh, yeah.
Our snow load alone over doubles the price of one of those standard.
Exactly.
Triples the spans.
Yeah.
Right, cuts them by a third.
Okay, we have a
Well,
motion.
I make a second. Let's do it.
Okay.
I think we had a,
I did.
I moved.
John moved and
Brett seconded.
Brett Beeler seconded, so we just need a vote.
Okay,
Commissioner Beeler, what is your vote?
Affirmative.
Or Chair Curry, what is your vote?
Affirmative.
Commissioner Mandel, what is your vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Watt, what is your vote?
affirmative, yes.
Okay, this motion carries 4-0.
Okay, next we've got another consideration for the Mammoth Lakes Fire District, serving as a backup guarantee for the USFS Wood Innovations Grants Program.
So I mentioned a few meetings back that the Donut Project, or ESCCRP, as you're familiar with, is going to create a significant amount of material that we're gonna have to figure out what to do with. And quite a few consultant studies have come up with the only feasible solution in our area is a biomass facilities. There's other places where that can get used by lumber yards and that sort of thing. That facility is gonna have to be up and running relatively quickly because there's a timeline on this where that's gonna take probably a year or two. We're already starting 3 large projects across town that we frankly don't know where to put all this material. It's just significantly more material than we've ever removed in town before. This is a collaborative effort that we're working with SCOG, the county, White Bark, ourselves, are kind of the primary leads on it. And there's a grant opportunity to basically, what you do is you put together a package so that somebody can come in and then build that facility. Based off some of the consultant recommendations, Ormat's actually interested in putting out about 5 acres. And they would want some of their equipment used because this is a business they can see themselves getting into across the nation and probably larger than that. So it's an opportunity to move this project forward. We are not the ideal grantee for this. This is a Forest Service grant. They'd like to see something a little larger, honestly. SCOG just doesn't have the bandwidth and capacity in the sense that we've got about a month to put this grant together, and SCOG needs to go through every one of their boards because it's basically a collaboration of boards. So the process for reaching any kind of decision takes several months because every board member has to check with their individual board to get approval. So SCOG's not realistic. Ideally, honestly, the county moves forward on this and they intend to. I last spoke with Chief Chris McCrasick, also met with their new CAO, Mary Boer, just to express the importance of this project. That said, this is something that I'd hate for it to not get done just because nobody can move fast enough. It's money that should get picked up. So if there is a need for grantee, my recommendation is that we are the backup essentially to move that forward, assuming that county can't. There is also, this is a 50% match. And I am not asking at this time for any kind of match funding other than what we have through our grants. White Bark has some grants that they could use, and the county could probably use some in-kind costs to make this happen. So this will be a collaborative effort no matter how it works out. It's just who's on the actual grant. Again, we are not the ideal person, but I think we need this to move forward. The other kind of cost of the district currently is I'm having Bob Rooks work on some of this as far as putting this together. If he did take this grant on, this would be something that, again, the administrative costs within the grant would cover his time long term. So it takes a while for those funds to come back. But at this point, just asking for considering us serving as the backup grantee, assuming the county can't get this done within the next week or two, mostly because they've had such a turnover in their leadership. My concern is that they struggle moving on things quickly over the next week or so. So I'm just looking.
Ormat is interested.
Ormat is interested. They are providing the land in theory. Sounds like we have, and all of this has, the initial studies have already occurred. There's about 5 or 6 different companies. They all use different methods for how they turn the wood into energy. The other nice thing about Ormat is you've got the grid right there, so it's perfect for that. And then the donor project would be the ideal first source of the fuel for this, so you're not moving trucks all the way to Lee Binding or something trying to make this happen. So there's a lot of alignment right now. We just want to make sure we don't drop the ball in the next month or so, because this would be funding that would help move this forward so that we can get a factory up there as quick as possible, honestly.
Has Ormat mentioned where the land is that they would?
It's about 5 acres on their property. I want to say it's on the north side. I don't have a map in front of me.
Down at the
but
plant here.
At the plant here, exactly. So it'll be right where their grid connection is, going right back to Zets. And obviously, if there was any significant associated costs outside of my purchasing, past what the retired Chief Brooks, I'd have to come back to the board and request that. But at this point, it's more just to serve as the grantee and work on some sort of solution where we find the funding through other grants. The nice thing about these grants is the matching can actually come from a different grant. So there ends up being hopefully very little cost or administrative time to the organization. We don't have the internal staff capacity to do this ourselves. This would be, like I said, Chief Brooks. There's also a wildland consultant, Wendolyn, who got hired by the county, and this would probably fall under her work as well.
Exciting if they make it happen.
Yeah, no. So I'm just looking for staff direction that you are comfortable with the fire district serving as the grantee, assuming we can't get the county to do that.
Oh, do I have a motion to approve?
Are we looking for a motion or just direction?
Brent, I think we just need direction, so we don't need an actual vote. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. If you're not, unless you're actually authorizing to enter into some sort of agreement, if you're just looking for staff direction, you don't need a formal motion.
Yeah, I'm good to continue to pursue the direction.
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay,
Good. Moves us on to item 9. Radio system update.
So to catch you guys up on what's happened since the last time we've done this, or talked about this, LOES has sent us 4 test radios for the California Radio Interoperability System. We've received them today and tried to go out and test them a little bit, see if we can get them to work. Run into some technical issues, I think. But the county has already agreed to go. I think we discussed this at the last meeting. The county has agreed to purchase the 5 sites, further linking us into that system.
You're gonna deploy these in duplicate while you're testing?
Yeah, in theory,
Parallel
the plan is that
systems.
we'd have a parallel system where this radio can work on VHF or trunk VHF. So you would run it on VHF and you eventually hit a switch. I don't foresee us honestly moving to this for about a year at the rate that it's going right now,
Yeah.
but things are moving forward. Just to note that the county did receive a $3 million grant for this and almost lost it because of timing and having somebody available to sign it. So Stacy Simon actually stepped in and made sure that that moved forward. We got the Motorola signatures contract signed. So the good news is at this point, there's a pod commitment essentially to move forward with the county spent about $2.5 million on this already. So and now it's just a matter of trying to start playing with it and figuring out, what looks right. The backbone of this structure will be the state Motorola system. We have to start figuring out what looks right from handhelds, mobiles, and that sort of thing. So still a lot of work to get done, but at this point it's moving forward. And again, if you remember, there was this decision point is going to be just the town and the fire district, with the county moving together in step. That's going to make for a better transition.
But the mountain's still out.
The mountain, so yeah, the mountain is actually on a similar system. It's Motorola based, but because it's not a P25 compliant, as soon as you go to state systems, they require P25 compliance, which triples the price of it. So I don't blame the mountain for the direction they went. That said, I've already discussed with Ski Patrol and Dan Flynn. They're working on landing zones for helicopters, for example. So there is an intent to patch our systems to where we'll be able to talk back and forth. How exactly that's going to get laid out from a technical perspective still needs to be worked out. That's all we had on chief officer and staff reports. If I can move to fire chief reports, I'll give you a quick update on the cell tower.
Sure.
So we rewrote the agreement based off some recommendations from that cellular consultant that I'd reached out to. At first, there were some concerns with it, but for the most part, they ended up agreeing and also agreeing that our site is significantly more valuable than had originally been discussed. So that's a positive for the fire district. In the meantime, while we're discussing, I had Verizon reach out to me and they were interested in placing a site as well. I said, look, we've already started with this project and it actually makes a lot of sense. If we can get Verizon, this truly does become a public safety project in the sense that we're hitting, 80–90% of the people in Old Mammoth. So having both carriers interested is significant from our perspective. We're not going to get as much money for that second provider because it's going back on the initial tower. We'll probably get some funding because they would basically that planter where we'll be putting generators and backup equipment, that sort of thing. We would just extend that out a little bit and provide some room for both carriers. But again, kind of same issue, just added benefit at this point from a public safety perspective. I just received an email today actually saying that Verizon has agreed, and their concern was they wanted this thing to be 100 feet now. And I said, look, we reach a point where we are just, it's going to be politically unviable for us to put something out there that's too tall. So had them do some propagation studies at 65 feet, which is where they ended up on AT&T, and they agreed to it. So we have a tentative agreement that both parties are interested. There's still a whole bunch more work to be done, but we're starting to see a framework of what this thing could actually look like. And it's best case scenario from a public safety or from our perspective. Plus with a good amount of funding, we originally, I believe they were offering us $28,000 for AT&T a year. I have that up to about $50,000. In 10 years, that buys a fire engine at that point. That's $500,000. We'll get something from Verizon, nowhere near the $50,000, but again, it does have that added benefit of serving the public. So,
Is that a yearly figure?
yeah. So you have a yearly fee. Don't quote me on this, but I believe the lease is a 10-year lease. That you can update afterwards. There's some steps built in for inflation and that sort of thing that are agreed upon. Still have to look through all of that, but basically you're looking at a 10-year, $50,000 a year lease.
And when can we expect that?
First payment.
Great, yeah, the first payment, yeah. I'm sure they want to move quickly once we get everything sorted. This is one of those things we've got to do it right. So once I get tentative agreement from all parties, my recommendation would be we go back to kind of what we were initially proposing, which is we go to town council, we make sure everyone's aware of what we're doing here and why we're doing it, have a couple meetings there, bring it here to the board, and then move forward. That being said, after that, it's a fairly simple project. You basically have a standard tree out back. There's some trench work that needs to happen that, Scott can probably speak on, and then some equipment on the side there. So it might still be limited to kind of summer month work ideally from our side, but nothing, unreasonable.
Well, when you had put the aerial ladder up there with the flag on it, Brett and I had gone up and on above Snow Creek 1 and 2, 3, looking down, you almost had the search
Yeah.
for
really
it.
did.
I mean, I was surprised at how little impact it had from that vantage point.
The good news, in my opinion, is if you look at that landscape, there's already some significant trees that are kind of scattered through the area that are good 60-foot tall trees. So, and this should be, it's spec'd as one of their best monopines in the sense that it looks as much like a tree as you can get on it. The top 5 feet are actually there just for aesthetic. So it's actually 5 feet shorter than it would be if it was not attempting to be a tree. So yeah, I agree. I think it'll look as best as possible.
I drove out into Snow Creek 5, especially on the road that goes through the meadow out to 5, looking over the golf course and towards the flag, the area on the flag, and couldn't really see it. Once you got out to Snow Creek 5, those condos out there, you really couldn't even see it at all.
Yes.
So, yep, moving forward on that fairly well. Next item is our annual audit. We're working with Don Colligan, who's done our previous audits. He's completed the majority of his work. Bill and I went through his work, Bill Green, our CPA, and everything looks appropriate. I still have to put together an MD&A, which is basically a management discussion. And I believe that this might be a good point for us strategically to look at some of those extra funds that we end up with at the end of the year. There's a good time to try to look at some policy and look at things like making sure we're putting away for capital expenditure so that we can build that metal building if that's what we want to do in the future. There's also making sure we have appropriate reserves. So my intent is to get that annual audit done and then come back to the board, within the next meeting or two after that, and make sure that we're appropriately spending any funds that we ended up being over last year, so that we can start building out those appropriate reserves.
I would agree.
Sprinkler ordinance board request update. There was a request that we follow up with Mike Britton. I met with him about a week ago and we had some positive conversations. He wants to be part of the solution as far as working out where this goes. So I asked him if he was willing to do some research for us, which he is. And we're going to work on putting together kind of a list of comparable departments, primarily in the Tahoe area, and looking at what best practices are, what their codes recommend, so that we are being friendly towards development, but also looking out for the interests of public safety. I think that's a balance we could certainly strike. He brought up the example of his 60 square foot bathroom that requires sprinklering only of that bathroom. So there's probably better ways to look at writing that code up. My recommendation is once he comes back to us with those, and we put together a committee, probably including Chief Moore, who oversees prevention, and likely Chief Walker, just because he has worked in construction and works a lot in our emergency operations. And we see if there's something that's a slightly better fit for the district. So moving forward on that. And just a quick wildland program update. Just have a lot of balls in the air right now. I spoke with Cal OES this morning. We're still planning on getting a type 6 out here. We're in the middle of negotiations with the association. It's starting to look real for them. So now we're getting to all the details of what that looks like. Ideally, we will have a wildland crew from May through most likely October, with the option to extend it like the Forest Service does, depending on what the season's doing. There's quite a bit of interest in working it. We're also working on getting the training scheduled in May so that we can hit the ground running in June. Basically, so that first month you end up doing crew boss, engine boss, driver operator programs and that sort of thing. It's tentatively moving forward with all of those across the front. And just to give you a quick update on the district, we had a fire yesterday where the roof shed and ripped off the meter. All the paneling along this building was metal, so we started having arcing across the building. Ended up having to dig out
I was there.
Yeah, dig out a transformer and having Edison shut it off, basically off at their end. But significant amount of work. It was, on the front end, it was a little dangerous till we figured out what was going on. We ended up having 18 individuals show up for that call. 7 or 8 of them were rookies, so we're still very light on experience. We're starting to get the numbers to where they need to be. It's just going to take a long time to get that experience to where it needs to be. And that's just, it's kind of the nature of everything right now. I think that there's some macro trends with COVID. Everything you talk to ski patrol, they're seeing similar things, but moving in a positive direction. New academy starting up in March, so keep plugging away.
Okay, thank you. Any board member comments?
Just one thing, and that's just to be clear, on our previous agreement, just so I will contact Betsy Truax and let her know, and then just basically invite her to the next meeting, is where we swear her in.
Caroline, do you have,
Yeah.
just to your
Just
question,
there.
Caroline, do you have her contact information and stuff? Okay.
And I do.
Okay.
And she's gonna have to fill out a whole bunch of
The
administrative
forms.
paperwork. Most of those classes she's already done for other boards, but we'll work on getting her through all that.
700.
We can, yeah. And if the board is comfortable with it, we can provide your contact information to her as well, so she can reach out to you personally.
Okay. I have one comment, and that was congratulations to you guys for the graduation ceremony, and looked like a great class that you graduated. Brett and I were there, and it's always a moving celebration, and you guys pulled it off. I really like the idea that you had it downstairs with the fire truck in the background there for pictures, and
It just didn't fit up here.
yeah, but I mean, it really
It
worked
was
out
nice,
well.
yeah.
You have to
And,
rent it, right?
I thought it was a beautiful ceremony.
Yeah.
Kudos. Okay, that's it. Legal advice. Have you got anything for us?
Nothing new today.
All right, then. Association. Nobody's here from the association. Okay. Announcements. Caroline, administrative business.
Next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, March 21st.
Item first.
Everyone here that day?
I should be in Fiji that day, so I won't be
Well,
here.
let's do it in Fiji.
Yeah.
And Carolina, I also can't attend that meeting.
Oh,
So we may want to choose another date and confirm with Betsy, just so we have.
Are you out most of that month, or is there a better time that works for you if we can try
The
to
week
get
previous on the 14th, I should be around. I don't think we leave until the 16th, so
Would you be able to do Zoom from
I don't
Fiji?
know.
No?
No.
what we can do from the staff side is see if there's an ideal time that works for the majority of the board.
that would be enough.
Obviously working towards a quorum. So worst case, if we can't put people together, we can get a quorum, we'll do that. But if there's a time that works for most of you.
14th or 21st works for me.
So how about the 14th then? Can.
That should work for me.
Okay.
I think the 14th will work.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we will have a quorum then if 3 of you can send me over.
Yeah.
You know, the
I know what's.
And
up.
Betsy might be here.
So the chief and I will confirm with Betsy whether she's available on
She'll
the
be here,
14th.
should be here.
Are you available?
I have to check. I'll get back. There's a conference I may have to attend, but I'll work on.
I'll work on the timing, confirm Betsy's availability, get back to you if 14th works for 3 of you currently, and it works for Betsy and the chief, then I'll send that to me.
I think it works for 4 of us.
Okay.
I think it's 4 of us.
For over here.
Yeah, it works for 4 of us.
For the 14th.
Okay.
I think it'll work for me.
That's it, Caroline?
I did have one more minor thing, in the formatting the minutes that are in your packet, I left out the signature line, so since you voted in favor of the minutes, we'll just get direction to use a signature stamp of, Dr. Green.
Yeah, aye.
Is that good, Brent?
Say that question again?
I apologize. That the
So when I reformatted the minutes, I left out the signature line, so I just wanted direction from the board to be able to use a signature stamp in lieu of a wet stamp here in the meeting.
Yeah, if they've approved it, I think that's fine.
Okay, great. I will do that, and that's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're gonna adjourn at 1:23.